The IRS says the 2026 filing season was successful, but more than 14 million individual tax returns were pulled out of normal processing and suspended for additional review. That means millions of taxpayers were left asking, where's my refund? Why is my refund still processing? Why is my tax return still processing? Why did I receive an IRS letter? And why can't anyone tell me exactly what's going on? I'm Deltrease Hart Anderson, keeping the IRS out of your pocketbooks, wallets, and bank accounts. Welcome to another episode of Tax Problem Solved, where today we're talking about the IRS freezing 14 million tax returns. Was one of them yours? So let's just get right into it. First, I want to explain what the word frozen means, because your tax return is not literally sitting inside of a freezer at the IRS. When your return is suspended or frozen, it usually means the IRS computer system has pulled that return out of normal processing for some reason, okay? Instead of your return moving smoothly through the system and your refund being issued, the return has been flagged for additional review. So that review could involve all sorts of things. It could be because of identity verification. It could be income verification. Questions about tax credits. It could be a mismatch between what you reported and what was reported to the IRS on you. It could be a possible duplicate return. There also, identity theft is just running crazy. It's going crazy. So there could be some suspected identity theft or something on that return that has triggered one of the IRS's fraud detection filters. And let me be very clear about something. A frozen return or a suspended return does not automatically mean you did anything wrong. And that's important because taxpayers immediately panic when they hear the words review or fraud filter or identity verification. Sometimes the IRS system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. They're trying to prevent someone from stealing your identity and filing a fraudulent return using your social security number, because that causes bigger problems and longer delays. But sometimes that same system catches legitimate tax returns. So that means that an innocent taxpayer can get caught up in the IRS's net and spend weeks or even months trying to get their own money released. So more than 1 million taxpayers did not receive their refunds within the IRS's normal processing time during 2026 filing season. The average delay for those taxpayers was about 5.5 weeks. So 5.5 weeks may sound like a long time to somebody who's not depending on that refund, but what about the taxpayer who needs that money to catch up on their rent or their mortgage, or they plan to repair their car, or they were waiting on that money as a down payment on a vehicle? What about the business owner who overpaid during the year and needs the refund for operating expenses? What about that family that has already waited through that normal processing period and cannot get a straight answer? Okay, that delay can create a genuine financial hardship. And this is where taxpayers sometimes make situations worse. You start calling the IRS every day. You're stressing yourself out. You file another tax return because you think the IRS didn't get that particular tax return, right? So now the IRS has 2 tax returns for you. The IRS is going to now think something is really wrong. So now, do we have the right returns? Is this a true duplicate, or is one of these returns a fraudulent return? You may amend a return before you know what the problem is. You might submit the same documents multiple times. You might contact 3 different tax professionals and give each one different pieces of the story as to why you did not receive your refund and now you want them to help you. Or you might pay somebody on social media who claims that they have a special hookup and they can get your refund release faster. Okay? Don't do that. Please don't do that. Know that legitimate professionals, we do have a special hotline, if you will, that we can call the IRS. And even, let me just tell you, that hotline is still long sometimes for us. The wait times are long. Sometimes we have to call back the next day. Sometimes the IRS hangs up on us as well. So even though we have a special hotline, just know no legitimate tax professional has a secret button that forces the IRS to release your refund on tomorrow. Okay? You cannot Cash App somebody $500 and suddenly jump to the front of the line with the IRS. Okay? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Okay? So anybody promising you a guaranteed release date without reviewing your account, your tax return, your specific transcripts from the IRS, and any letters that you receive, they're selling you wolf tickets, okay? Tell them, look, stop playing in my face. You know you can't get that done. Here is what you should do instead. You want to check the information on the return. Do not just ask, where's my refund? You want to pull out the actual tax return. You want to review it. Make sure everything is correct, like your name, your social security number. Did you use the correct filing status? Did you report all of your W-2s, all of your 1099s, all of your K-1s? Did you claim a dependent who may also have been claimed on someone else's return? Was your direct deposit information correct? Did the return include any credits you were not expecting? You may not understand every little line on your tax return, but there are some big things. Of course, you want to make sure at least you know what was filed in your name, okay? And this is really important if someone else has prepared the return for you. I've seen tax preparers who could not explain why they received such a large refund. They did not know which credits were claimed. They did not know what income was reported. All they did was sign the return. No one reviewed it with them, and that was it. Because the preparer told them they were getting a big refund. They may not even know how much that refund is. That refund may have been the thing that stopped the IRS, that gave the IRS pause, and now that tax return has been suspended or frozen. Okay? So here's another thing. If you receive a letter about your return, read every IRS letter that you have, even if you don't understand it. Read it. Don't assume that every letter is a bill, because every letter from the IRS, believe it or not, is not a hey, you owe me money letter. Okay? So the IRS may be asking you to verify your identity. The IRS may be requesting wage information. They might be telling you that your income or withholding on your return doesn't match what some third party sent to them about your income and your withholdings. IRS might be asking you to verify that you even filed a return at all. Okay, so look at the letters. The notice numbers matter. The deadlines matter. The exact documents requested matters. Don't send the IRS a box containing your whole tax life when they may be asking you for two specific documents, okay? Don't ignore the letter, because ignoring a letter, let's say if you had a letter where the IRS was asking you just to verify your identity, okay? If you ignore that letter, now the IRS is going to say, well, he or she didn't respond, so I guess everything is fine. Let me send them the money, whoever that money was going to fraudulently. So just know the return may be frozen until you complete the required verification, if that's your case. Another thing, please, please, please do not duplicate a tax return that you've already filed. So this is one of the biggest mistakes that taxpayers make. They'll file a tax return electronically or sometimes mail it in. The refund does not arrive as quickly as they expect because they're usually getting their refunds within 2 to 3 weeks, but they didn't get it. Now they mail another copy of that same return. Now the IRS has 2 returns for the same taxpayer for the same year. You have not sped anything up. Now you've created another issue that the IRS has to resolve. The same principle applies to amended returns. The amended return is not a customer service compliant return, okay? You do not file an amended return simply because the original return is taking too long. You amend a return when something on the original return was actually incorrect or if it was incomplete, okay? Another thing I want you to do is look beyond the refund tracker. So the Where's My Refund tool is super useful, right? But it does not always tell you the full story. Sometimes it provides a general message like your return is still being processed. That message does not necessarily explain why the tax return is still being processed. An IRS transcript may provide additional clues. A transcript can show when the return was posted, if the return was posted, whether certain holes or transaction codes are present, whether a notice was issued, whether a refund was released or reversed or frozen, suspended, right? But, and this is a big, big but, do not start diagnosing your entire tax return from one transaction code you saw on a Facebook group, okay? One code is not going to tell you a full story. You have to read the whole transcript. You have to look at the timelines. What happened before the code? What happened after the code? Was a notice generated? Has the IRS completed its review? A transcript should be analyzed in context. If you take it out of context, then you could be very disappointed. Okay? Another thing I want you to do is determine whether you are experiencing a hardship. So there's a difference between being frustrated and experiencing an actual hardship. A hardship may involve an eviction, a foreclosure, your lights or water could be cut off. When you talk about your cable bill or the internet, we're talking about utilities, the necessities. Any inability to obtain necessary medical treatment, loss of transportation needed for work, or something else that is of serious financial consequence. Because when there is a delay in your refund due to a significant hardship, then you might be able to fast forward what's going on with the IRS, okay? That does not mean that every taxpayer with a delayed refund automatically qualifies for assistance. But if the delay is causing some serious harm, then you don't want to wait until the situation becomes a complete emergency before exploring your options. So here's another thing. The IRS can process millions of returns, issue millions of refunds, and call the filing season successful. And from an operational standpoint, those numbers may represent success to them, but the statistics do not comfort the taxpayer, you as the taxpayer, that is still sitting in this pile, in this suspended or frozen pile. That's no comfort for you. So the IRS is going to measure their success in percentage and volume, where you are going to experience the system one return at a time. For the IRS, 5.5 weeks delay, that could be average. For you, it may mean 5.5 weeks of unanswered questions, missed payments, and unnecessary anxiety. And both of the things could be true. The IRS may have processed most returns successfully, but if you're not in that most category, then the system has failed you as a taxpayer. That's why you cannot simply say, well, everybody online is waiting, so I'll just wait too. You need to determine whether your return is just taking longer than expected or whether the IRS is waiting for you to take action. Did the IRS send you a letter? Does the IRS need you to verify your identity? Is there an income mismatch? Was there a credit that you normally don't claim, or whether you legitimately claimed it or not? Is it questionable in the eyes of the IRS? Did your preparer put something on the return that you do not recognize? There is a young lady right now, a former tax preparer, that put her whole story out online. She's headed to federal prison because she was putting things on her clients. She was putting false information, I should say. Just to be clear, she was placing false information on her clients' tax returns. And her business partner got caught. And now they're doing time. They're serving time in prison. She's headed to prison soon. So did your tax preparer, not saying that your tax preparer did anything wrong, but you want to make sure that you know what's on your tax return, okay? Make sure that your social security number wasn't used on someone else's account, on someone else's tax return. Make sure that whoever you're claiming, your dependent's social security number wasn't used on someone else's tax return, okay? Is there a freeze code on your account for some reason? So those are different problems, and they require different solutions. And before I close, I really need to say something to taxpayers who are choosing preparers based solely on the size of the refund. Your refund is not a prize. It is not proof that the tax preparer knows more than anybody else. Remember, as I just mentioned, a young lady going to prison that was a tax preparer. And a preparer who promises you a big refund in the first place before even reviewing your documents is not performing tax planning. They're making a sales pitch. I cannot stand. I see it all the time, especially during tax season. In January, I see these signs out. Oh, we'll get you back the biggest refund or the maximum refund. That's a sales pitch. There is no secret tax credit menu behind the counter, by the way. You can't order head of household refunds with an earned income credit combo and add a fake business loss on the side. Don't do it. Don't play in the IRS's face like that. Now, that might sound funny right now. It's all fun and games until that refund gets suspended, until that refund gets stolen, or until the IRS adjusts your tax return, or until you receive that nasty letter from the IRS saying that you owe taxes and penalties and interest, or until that preparer disappears and leaves you to explain a return you never understood in the first place. So if your refund is delayed, don't panic. Do not operate blindly either. You want to review your return. You want to check and see if the IRS sent you any notices. You want to obtain your transcripts and respond. If you did receive a letter, respond exactly how the IRS wants you to respond. You want to keep a record of every time you contact the IRS. And then you want to get qualified help when the math ain't mathin', when the facts are more complicated than a routine processing delay. Because the goal is not simply to get the IRS to send a check. The goal is to make sure that the refund in your name is accurate, is defensible, and not creating a bigger tax problem down the road. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much again for listening to another episode of Tax Problem Solved, where we keep the IRS out of your pocketbooks, wallets, and bank accounts. So if you are one of the 14 million that had your refunds or your tax returns frozen or suspended and you need help, please reach out to us. www.callthetaxpro.com. That's www.callthetaxpro.com. Till next time, bye y'all.